another thing that you brought up, and I'm glad you did, was where some of the money goes from those unions. Because, I mean, if someone thinks about a union, like my friend who I brought up, her thought was, oh, like, what's wrong with collective bargaining or people getting together to help them flourish in their workforce and in their workspace. But the unions aren't necessarily using the money and the dues that they get in that way. So what kinds of things are public sector unions funding?
Yeah, well, I want to touch on one of the first things you said about collective bargaining, and then I'll get to the second part of your question.
Please.
But collective bargaining, the way I understand it, which I think is a pretty apt analysis, is that it's kind of like a group project set up for failure. And I used that in a podcast episode once, and I was like, that's pretty much how you say it, is that because when you join a collective bargaining unit, you are adding, what unions want you to think is that you are adding your voice to the collective, the bigger voice, that you're part of a thing. But more realistically is that you lose the entire ability to speak for yourself. And so say if we're in a group project or something and you're doing A quality work and I'm doing maybe C or D quality work for whatever reason, but we'd be graded the same. And so if you're doing A quality work and I'm doing C quality work, if we get a B right in the middle, you're being treated unfairly and I'm being treated unfairly because you're being brought to a lesser standard than you're working for and I'm being brought up to a higher standard than I deserve. And so that's what happens with the collective bargaining, is that they just do this blanket, okay, everybody, we're going to push for this particular thing. And some teachers, because they're part of the unit who maybe don't, or teachers particularly is what it comes to when we talk about, funding and what I'll get to next. But people who are in the bargaining unit, they're brought some different benefit to their work, and they know they're part of the bargaining unit and they're just coasting along, and so they get something that they may not deserve because the work they're doing isn't up to par. And then people who are doing really good work and really putting their back into it, I suppose, of really valuing their work and doing it well, aren't being compensated fairly or being treated fairly because they have to be kept at the same level. And if you're not in a bargaining unit, if you believe you need a raise or that you're doing especially good work and you want to be recognized, which if you're doing good work, you should be recognized for that, then you have the ability to go and say, hey, boss, look at what I've done. Let's talk about what comes next for me in my job. But if you're part of a bargaining unit, you cannot go to a boss and speak about literally anything. If you're a teacher, you can't talk about anything in your workplace. If you're part of the bargaining unit, you have to go through your union. And if your union rep has it out for you for some bizarre reason, they will never bring it to the table and you will never get compensated or get that thing addressed that you want.